ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Tuesday, October 15th meeting to order, and I would like to ask the Girl Scout Troop 15324 to come forward and lead us in the pledge, if you would. Thank you, ladies. Now, before you sit down, if you would come up to the podium and tell us your name and what school you go to and anything else you'd like to say about your troop. And then afterwards, we would love to have a picture taken with you.
I'm Shelby. I'm in 5th grade, and I go to Sweet Apple Elementary.
I'm Caitlin. I go to Hembry Springs. I'm Hallie, and I go to Sweet Apple Elementary.
I am Julia, and I go to Hembry Springs.
I'm Kelsey. I go to Hembry Springs.
I'm Julianne, and I go to Sawney Elementary.
I'm Annabeth, and I go to Fulton Science Academy.
Leaders, please. Thank you.
Miss Patterson and Miss Tucker.
Let's hear it for Troop 15324. And we would love to have a picture with you, so if y'all will walk up here, we'll... Thank you again, ladies, and you all have a wonderful evening. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the recognition of the City of Roswell's 911 Communications Division and Director achieving the Association of Public Safety Communications Office, APCO, International Agency Training Certification. And do we have anyone here from the 911 Center that, yes, Ms. Altero.
They're all here.
And they're all here. Awesome. Who's manning the 911 Center?
They are there. They're probably watching us on the camera right now. Good evening, Mayor Henry and council members. Training for public safety telecommunicators, initial and continuing education is exceedingly important as we provide essential services to the public in an ever-expanding and rapidly changing public safety environment. The APCO, it stands for Association of Public Safety Communications Officials, International Project 33 Agency Training Program Certification is a formal mechanism for the Roswell 911 Center to certify our training program as meeting American national standards. The primary objective of the agency training program certification is to advance the training and professional development of our 911 staff. Building and implementing a successful agency training program requires resources and a good deal of dedication. I'd like to bring special attention to our training and quality assurance coordinator, Mandy Oren, who is actually on vacation this week, for her commitment to our center and to the training program. Her creativity and passion inspires everyone in the center to continuously raise the bar in training. From the moment a recruit walks in the door, we provide an atmosphere of learning, purpose, and commitment of service to our community. Also, as you can imagine, submitting the certification process takes a good amount of time, structure, and organizational skills. We'd like to also recognize Communications Supervisor Kylie Nunzianti, who is here with us today, for managing the actual application process. It took several months to complete. It included submitting our educational curriculum, training materials, and supporting documentation to be checked for compliance. Kylie received our award on behalf of the center at the 85th Annual APCO Conference in Baltimore this past August. Finally, the state of Georgia does not have minimum training requirements for 911 professionals. The state 911 authority is currently working on that, but that doesn't stop us here in Roswell. In 2018, we averaged 52 annual training hours per dispatcher, and that does not include specialty training or training conferences. Our 911 team is truly the best of the best, continuously performing at an exceptional level to serve the citizens of the city of Roswell. And we want to thank you, Mayor Henry, and council members, Mr. Palmer, and of course, Chief Conroy, for allowing us to continue to trailblaze in our industry. Congratulations to my entire 911 team, because they truly rock.
Let me tell you all, our 911 center is the best of the best, and I can't brag on them enough, and I just want to say thank you. And would you all let us take a picture with you? That'd be awesome. Thanks.
All right, keep smiling. Oh, sorry. Okay. Mind your way, Captain.
And another good news story, we've got the recognition of the City of Roswell GIS Division receiving the Urban and Regional Information Systems Association Distinguished System Award for 2019.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It was approximately 4 years ago that the City of Roswell had a GIS division, and for the most part, what we did was we made maps, really pretty maps, really good maps, but we made maps. But as things happened, we did two very important things. We had a consultant to do a GIS strategic master plan, and we hired Patrick Baber. Under the leadership of Patrick, the GIS plan was implemented. Under the leadership of Patrick, the staff has blossomed into a first-class professional GIS staff, and we do a lot, or they do a lot more than make pretty map. They have become a valuable tool, not just for the Community Development Department, but for the entire city and the entire city staff. And this award is evidence of the great work that under Patrick's leadership, that the GIS division has done. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about the award.
Thank you, Alice. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Patrick Baber, and I'm the manager of the GIS division here at Roswell. And I am pleased to let you know that we were the recipient of a 2019 URISA eSig award. URISA is the Urban and Regional Information Systems Association. They are a national GIS organization, and their eSig, or Exemplary System in GIS, is awarded to local governments whose GIS demonstrates an extraordinary achievement. Now, our extraordinary achievement is the implementation of this 3-year strategic plan. But before I get into that, I do like to remind people just what GIS is. GIS is Geographic Information System, and that is any system which collects, creates, stores, manages, displays, and analyzes location information. So a lot of people think of that as maps, but there's a lot more to it than that. Knowing where something is good, but if you understand information about that location or that asset, that's really the power of GIS, is linking information to location. So if you know where all the pipes are, that's good. But if you know the age and the material of the pipes, you know when they're most likely to fail based on their age and that material. And so across the city in all divisions and across numerous departments, lots of city staff have a vested interest in location information, and that's where GIS comes in. So we do the analysis, we collect the data, we create tools and applications that help our staff do their jobs better, and that makes us more efficient as an organization. And when we take that information and turn it into maps and reports and we share it with the public, that makes us more transparent as a local government. So that's really what GIS is about. 4 years ago, when I came to the city of Roswell, as Alice mentioned, the GIS was fairly significantly underutilized. Someone had a good analogy that I like. Our GIS at the time was like a smartphone that was only being used to create or to make phone calls. And so we had the right technology, we had a good team, we had the correct software, but we weren't integrated and we weren't taking advantage of the technology that we had at our disposal. Additionally, we were pretty far behind the times, especially compared to our contemporaries, other municipal GIS systems in our area. And so we contracted with a consultant who specializes in municipal GIS. They came in and did an assessment. And the result of that assessment is this 3-year strategic plan. And this is a roadmap. This contains very many initiatives, a lot of departmental projects, tools and applications to be built, data to be developed, ways to integrate with various divisions within the city to make GIS more prevalent and to help other city staff to do their jobs. And our faithful dedication to executing this plan and the amount of work that's gone into it over the past 3 years is really what put us on URISA's map. As I mentioned, they are a national GIS organization, and there were very many other municipalities who were nominated for this award. But in 2019, only 3 municipalities were awarded a URISA eSig, and Roswell was one. So I'm proud to say that we're nearing the end of the 3-year scope. We have just a little bit left to go. And not only have we caught up with our contemporaries in the area, but in certain areas, we're actually an industry leader in some of the things that we're doing. So I'm very proud of my team. That's myself, Sean Hamby, Angel Stark, and Peg Eisenbrandt. I'm also very thankful to our city's management and to our elected officials for your support and buy-in as we've gone through this plan. So really this award, it belongs to everyone who had a piece in making us this successful. And while I would love to sit here all night and tell you about the cool plans we have for the future, the amazing things we've done, the pretty maps and the cool tools we've done, I am respectful to the agenda. So I will suffice it to say I'm available offline to discuss anything. If you see an opportunity for improvement, if there's something else you think we should be involved in, I welcome your input. And with that, I say thank you again, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Does council have any questions? Well, I would just like to thank our GIS department, and let's hear it for GIS, and let's get a picture. The next item on the agenda is the recognition of the City of Roswell receiving the award for outstanding achievement in popular annual financial reporting for FY 2018 and from the Government Finance Officers Association. Mr. Luckett.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here this evening to let you know that the City of Roswell has received the award for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Annual Financial Reporting, also known as the PAFR, for FY 2018 from the Government Finance Officers Association. As you might remember, each year we produce a comprehensive annual financial report, also known as the CAFR, that not only details out the city's financial condition for that particular fiscal year, but also includes a variety of other information that is useful for assessing the city's financial condition. All in, the CAFR is over 100 pages long, as you can see. And I'm not sure I've met anyone outside of finance that's read it cover to cover without maybe a few naps in between. This is where the popular annual financial report comes into play. The purpose of the PAFR is to take these 100 pages of very technical information and summarize it into this 10-page document that is more visually appealing and relatable to the average person. This is the first year that the city has produced a PAFR and the first year that the city has received this award. I'd like to recognize our accounting division and our accounting manager, Jennifer Stewart, who's with us tonight, along with our deputy finance director, Georgette McCrae, for taking on this challenge and coordinating this effort. I would also like to recognize our community relations division, especially Karen Zittimer and Joel Vasquez. They did a wonderful job of taking all of our very dry and boring information and producing something that could appeal to our residents more easily. Community relations also assisted us in getting the PAFR posted on the city website, as well as promoting it through other means. And of course, I'd also like to thank the Mayor and Council and our City Administrator for your support and continued commitment to adhering to best practices when it comes to local government finance. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Luckett. You can't escape without a picture. The next item on the agenda, we've got some more exciting news. And this is the approval of a resolution for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign a purchase and sales agreement authorizing the purchase of certain property on Holcomb Bridge Road, the M.S. Kaufman, as trustee of the HBR Trust property, at a purchase price not to exceed $9,000 plus outstanding taxes and closing costs, and approval of budget amendment 35015850101519 in the amount of $25,000. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here because this is just a very important occasion for this body, and I'm going to open it up to council for discussion and comments. I'm also going to ask you to take a vote, and then after the vote is taken, I'll open it up to the public because I know we've got several folks in the public that are very excited about this. I'll give you a little background on Seven Branches. With this acquisition, the Seven Branches property will be 53 acres of undeveloped land, some of which was donated as charitable contribution. The acquisition of this final parcel will expand the property by over 2 acres. The first parcel of land was purchased in September of 2017. 4 purchases later, the city has secured the entire Seven Branches property. Approximately 47 acres was purchased with GEFA, G-E-F-A, conservation loans and are subject to deed restrictions which promote passive uses. That leaves about 6 acres to use for future needs such as parking lots or restrooms. A ribbon cutting will be held on Thursday, November 14th at 10 a.m. Parking will be located at the East Roswell Park entrance off of Eves Road, and a shuttle will be provided to the ribbon cutting site. This project is important because at the heart of every Roswell citizen is the desire for preservation of green space and trees. This significant acquisition preserves the natural beauty of Seven Branches for future generations. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone involved in this acquisition. It was truly a team effort. Are there council members that would like to speak now? Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent, Mayor Henry, very well said. Definitely a great team effort and really just a community effort. So really exciting to preserve this green space and all the individuals that got to be a part of that. And for those of you that have not walked through this property, you, the taxpayer, you, the Roswell resident, own it, and I strongly recommend you walk through and you enjoy these trails, these old growth trees, beautiful creek. We had an event, there was an event probably a couple weeks ago where some of us went there to pick up some trash. There is some work to do to clean it up. So the work, this is not 100% finished, and we definitely need to make sure it's something that everybody can enjoy, but it's something that everybody will be able to enjoy for generations. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have been a part of really all of these votes and getting to purchase this entire property.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, I just want to say I think we all couldn't be prouder to be a part, to know that this landmark property has been preserved along Holcomb Bridge Road. It's such a beautiful landmark for all of us, and just to know that it's going to be preserved. And I do thank everyone who's been involved in making it happen. I know there are some residents and citizens who've played a big role in that, and just look forward to being able to reflect on it for a very long time to come. Thanks.
Additional, Councilmember Tizer? Wait. No additional comments? Yes, Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this has been a long journey, but I'm so happy have the honor and privilege to be here tonight to acquire the last parcel of Seven Branches. That is a great addition to Roswell and the surrounding communities of the park. And I know there have been people here working very hard to get this done. Have not been easy, but tonight is going to be the coronation of a long journey, and very excited to be here tonight to witness and vote on this acquisition.
Councilmember Tizer.
So I'm not sure I'll get the chance after he speaks. I'd like to just thank my friend Tucker, who was really instrumental in putting it all together. And I was really respectful of the way that both the city and the citizens worked together on this one to make this happen at a cost that was quite affordable to everyone. And it's that spirit of working as a team, I think, that was the most impressive on this project, on this last piece. Thank you.
Councilmember Judy.
Well, since everybody else said something, I think everybody got everything I was going to say, but appreciate everyone sticking in on this. City Legal did a great job working on making sure this came to fruition, and along with Tuck and all the folks that were involved in this. So excited to cast my vote for this evening.
Thank you. And I would also like to reiterate something that you just said, which, you know, there are many of us that would like to lay claim to 7 branches. However, I would really like to thank Mr. Davidson and our legal department because they did a lot of work on this, and this was for many, many years. And I know that they're happy that we finally acquired it, but I do thank our legal department for their wisdom. There were many times when folks wanted to hurry up and buy, and Mr. Davidson said, slow down and wait, and which really helped us to purchase a piece of property that is absolutely gorgeous for less money than you could imagine. So thank you so much. Now, what I'd like to do is ask for a motion and a vote, and then I'll open it up to the public. Councilmember Tizer?
Thank you. Did you want to?
Just motion to approve. Or
Go ahead.
Councilmember Wilsey?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Wilsey, a second by Councilmember Zapata. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Yes. At this time, I would like to open it up to the public. And whoever would like to come forward first, please come forward.
Northcliffe Trace. I have a prepared statement, so please forgive me. I know that I will go under 5 minutes. I've already timed myself. I want to put a picture up here. All right, how do you make this thing work? Somebody. Where is it? All right. I'll start my clock. Okay. Huh? Just look at that. See how that makes you feel while I'm talking. Okay. I know at 73 years old I should act the part of the elder statesman, but when it comes to this project, I cannot contain myself. So here I go, under 5 minutes. We are very lucky to live in Roswell, Georgia. If you ask anybody why they live here, why they came, why they love living here, you will get a myriad of answers. However, to a person, everyone will say they love our school systems, our historic district, and our nationally recognized Parks Department. Today, we celebrate the last great addition to this phenomenal park system. Seven Branches Legacy Park is the result of over 4 years of effort, countless hours of volunteer work by many people with one goal in mind, to forever protect this magnificent 53-acre parcel and its many sources of water that all flow into Martin Lake, then into the Chattahoochee River, to provide drinking water not only for those of us that live here, but the many millions of people that depend on it as it flows from Roswell to the mouth of Apalachicola Bay in Florida. We could never have achieved this level of success without the help and support of a core group of people. Over 4 years ago, David Tollison, Paula Winniski, 2 people who had previously served as council members, approached me with the idea of trying to protect this property in perpetuity. David had been instrumental in the effort to establish the Big Creek Parkway. Paula had helped Pat and I in our efforts in the 90s to create the river park. It would be a difficult path, It involved negotiating with 4 separate property owners, multiple members of the present and future city councils. We have to thank the present mayor and council for they voted to obtain this last 2.8-acre parcel tonight that completes the final piece of the park. I can remember when Mayor Henry was running for her current position. She made a video in support of the park. Today, we can thank her for fulfilling that promise. Many times, there were meetings at our home with the owners of the various properties. We've enjoyed the constant support and attendance at those meetings of Councilman Palermo and Zapata. Don Horton, who's running for position again, has always been an ardent supporter of this project. In fact, it was Don who was instrumental in researching the Georgia Environmental Financing Authority, a funding mechanism the city used to procure the vast majority of the land in the park at 0.5% interest. 2 years ago, Matt Tizer and Sean Grower had just been elected to council. Because Sean was filling a vacant seat, in his first meeting, he would have to vote in the decision to purchase 8.65 acres on the park adjacent to Eves Road. It was a cold winter's day with snow on the ground, and they walked the entire property with me, and they listened carefully to our case, and Sean would subsequently vote for the acquisition. Proving to our elected representatives that we have substantial public support is always a difficult task when you hope to negotiate a fair price for a piece of property. You can imagine what would happen to the price if we had 400 people show up in green shirts at City Hall to demonstrate. For this piece of the puzzle, we always relied on our computer genius, Scott Long, who's here tonight, to come up with a solution. He and Paula Winiski set up a website informing the public and asking for input. We made presentation to the boards of directors to 14 different subdivisions surrounding the park, who voted unanimously in favor of this project. I hold in my hand the signed statements of just people in the 30075 and 30076 zip codes, those who live in Roswell supporting this purchase. We made one of these for every member of the council. Once the city agreed to begin purchasing each piece of the park, it was up to our attorney, David Davison, city attorney David Davison, to begin the delicate negotiations. Thanks to his calm demeanor and thorough knowledge of the tax laws, he and the property owners reached an agreement whereby each one would donate a portion of their property to the city and receive a taxable deduction. There are always those forces at work that seek to loosen environmental rules put in place to protect our public places. Fortunately for the Seven Branches Park, the majority of it was purchased using Georgia Environmental Finance Authority funding, as I mentioned, which in effect places a conservation easement on the property and prohibits future building on all but a small amount of acreage that the mayor alluded to. We have been also very lucky to have Dick Farmer continually monitoring the water quality of the various streams and forwarding his results to the city and the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper. I would like to invite all of you to attend the media event that the mayor just mentioned on Thursday, November the 14th at 10. It's going to be a whopper, I can promise you. That's all I want to tell you. I'll leave you with one final quote. A society is not only defined by what it creates, but also by what it chooses not to destroy. We, the citizens of Roswell, have chosen not to destroy these things that make our city such a wonderful place to live. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Thank you again. And seeing no hands up, we will go ahead and move on to Community Development Department. Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor Henry. Item number 5, approval of a conditional use and concurrent variance request, CV 2019-2120/CU 2019-2119 for multifamily located at 1223 Canton Street. This item was deferred at the September 9th, 2019 Mayor and Council meeting. Ms. Dybel?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is conditional use 2019-2120 and concurrent variance 2019-2119 located at 1223 Canton Street. The applicant has requested a conditional use to allow for 11 multifamily units with also commercial. Timeline, this item was submitted on May 6th of this year. It was heard by the Design Review Board on June 4th. It had a neighborhood meeting on June 13th of 2019. They went to the Planning Commission on August 20th of 2019, and it's here this evening at Council. The applicant did defer twice. They were deferred from the July Planning Commission meeting and also the September Council meeting. Here's an aerial view of the property. As you can see, it is about 4 parcels north of Woodstock Road. It is zoned NX, Neighborhood Mixed Use. The future land use plan. So the applicant, as indicated, is a conditional use for multifamily. The multifamily square footage totals 19,492 square feet. The commercial portion is 1,655 square feet. The entire building totals 21,497, and this includes common area. Here's the site plan. I have a blow up here on the next slide so you can see it a little bit better. So you have in the front portion where it says 11 residential units. That front portion is about 100 feet. That is 2 stories. And then the back portion goes up to 30 feet in height. So you have a 24-foot in the front half of the building and 30 feet in the back half of the building on the property. As shown on the site plan, you can see that they are saving the tree in the front, and they have their 40-foot buffer in the rear. They are asking for 1 variance, which is to the build-to zone minimum % of lot width requirement from the 75% requirement to 42%. This plan shows what they're asking for. The 75% is the yellow line. And as you can see, a portion of that building does meet the 75%. However, a small portion of it does not, and it is at 42%, sorry. So you do have a part of it meeting the 75%. This is the tree plan, showing you the trees located, proposed for the buffer area. Planning Commission recommended approval of this project at their meeting in August with 4 conditions: to install the 5-foot sidewalk as approved by RDOT, and to shift the parking spaces located in the front to the east to comply with the ingress and egress requirements. That the number of units is not guaranteed as long as they meet all the code requirements, and that the owner-developer should comply with all fire regulations. Staff recommends approval of this with the same 4 conditions. Do you have any questions for staff?
Just Councilmember Judy.
So, Jackie, these are stated to be condo units?
Yes, the applicant indicated in their letter of intent that these would be condominium units.
Okay, and as far as the height with the surrounding locations, I believe we have a house across the street that's being built that's about 33 and a half feet, single-family home. This is at 30 feet and is really in line with most of the surrounding locations, correct?
Yes, so the front half of the building, as I indicated, is going to be 2 stories, so it's 24 feet. And then the back half is going to be, total height is shown at 30 feet. So it is, as you indicated, a little bit shorter than the house that's being built a little bit down the street on the other side. And 3 parcels down, you have a building that was built at 45 feet. The parcels on either side are basically single story, so they're probably about 20 feet in height. So the front half of this, which is the 24 feet, does meet with the properties in the area.
And I know this is hard to, because there is not an NX in the Historic District Master Plan, but should this be within the Historic District, which it is not, most likely this would meet due to the 2 stories up front, the setback, and the height of the building.
As you stated, it is not in the Historic District. It is outside. Hold on a second. Okay. Based on the plan and the fact that I am preparing for the work session on the 28th, so I've been reading through the master plan over the last few days. The portion that we have here on this section here, you can see, since they are asking for a variance, the facade widths are less than 80 feet, even the entire thing, since it's at 75%. So they are less than that. So they would comply with that portion. They are only 2 stories in the front, which is what the master plan does also indicate. It is hard to specifically state since this is not in the historic district, but for the most part, it probably would comply.
Thank you.
Additional questions from council for staff? Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So, Ms. Dybel, in the packet, there was a 5th condition mentioning the owner/developer shall save the 3 specimen trees, and then it details those. Can you help me understand that?
Yes, staff had indicated those originally, but Planning Commission recommended without those, and staff removed that due to the fact that if you saved those trees, you wouldn't be able to plant the trees that they're proposing, because those trees, the new trees, would end up killing the specimen trees that they are showing that are indicated to be removed. So if in the one specimen tree, that 24-inch oak that they're looking to save, you wouldn't be able to plant a lot of the trees around it, because it would end up killing the tree. So we removed that condition after the Planning Commission meeting.
And can you just help me understand really the benefits of one direction or another? So it basically sounds to me, if I'm understanding correctly, there's basically the choice of saving those specimen trees or cutting them down and planting new trees, and help me understand why one direction is better than the other.
Okay, well, the 3 trees that they show to be removed, which is the existing 48-inch oak and then the 24-inch oaks, would end up dying due to the location of the buildings and the parking lot area. So they would die anyway based on the construction. The new trees, which according to our buffer requirements, it is required to do, for 40 feet, you do 2 rows of evergreen trees. So if you planted evergreens in there, that would help with the buffer and be more substantial than an existing 24-inch oak that might not live through the development of the property. Does that help?
It does. And just, I don't know if this question's for you, Ms. Steibel, or for Mr. Davidson. Hypothetically, if this council chose, could this council decide they would only be willing to grant the requests on the condition that the building would not be built so far back, and therefore those specimen trees would be saved? And I'm not looking to have a discussion on whether or not that's the right decision. I'm more of just curious if legally that's even a choice.
I don't know if you could condition it on them building a building that saves the trees, because just the groundwork could kill the trees. So I'm not sure if that's possible. I'm not a landscape architect or arborist. If it is possible and we have a professional that could state so, then that would be appropriate.
Thank you.
Additional questions from council for staff? Thank you, Ms. Steibel. I'd like to open it up to the applicant. If you'd like to come forward, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Wise. I'm with Paulson Mitchell Engineering. I reside at 125 Spring Ridge Drive in Roswell. Ms. Dybel did a great job explaining the site, so I'm going to be pretty brief. I just want to go over a few things. Our concurrent variance for the Build 2 zone allows us to provide fire access to the backside of the building. That was one reason we needed that variance to be able to pass the fire code. As far as traffic, it's a small number of units, 11 residential and a small retail or office space. And so we'll provide, it'll propose minimal traffic onto Canton Street for this area. There was one issue that we worked with the members of the community on, that's the stormwater of this area. There is a draw coming to the middle of our site. We are proposing, and we work with the staff of City of Roswell to deal with this. We're proposing a 4-foot wide concrete flume with energy dissipators to reroute this stormwater around the building, which will then go into a plunge pool, which is essentially a concrete pit level spreader to help this water flow on the south side of, or north side of our property at a more spread instead of a single centralized flow, which will help with the stormwater on the north side that leads down to the rest of Canton Street. Sewer and water was available adjacent to the property. That's no issue. And the building's also being sprinklered and upgraded building construction to help meet the fire code. I'm going to pass it along to Marcus Mello with Randall Paulson to speak about the building use and building type.
I'm Marcus Mello with Randall Paulson Architects, 210 Trace. Our client, when we started this building, we had a 3-story building close to the street as allowed by the UDC. And then we went and got feedback what people would like to see here. And we heard that the big tree in the front was important. The concerns about height were important and scale. And then we went back to the drawing board and we pushed the building back so we could save this beautiful tree that's in the front. This is another view of the building when you are in Canton. So it's further back even from the adjacent houses. And the reason we are doing this is so that we don't disturb the roots of this tree so it can be saved. We do have parking that's closer to the tree that you can see there, but this parking is existing, so it will not be disturbing the root system. And I also would like to clarify an issue about the height. We do not have 30 feet height from the street, per se. The building is 30 foot high in the back because the site goes down 6 feet. So the building from the street is just 24 feet. The maximum allowed is 45 feet. So it's almost like a 2-story building only when you look from the street. And that goes all the way back. We don't step up. And I have a diagram here. So this is an aerial view. You see what the building is going to look like with a big tree in front. And I have another slide showing if the tree was not there, how far set back the building is. And how well it works with the scale which is adjacent. So this is a diagrammatic section where you can see, so on your left side is Canton Street, and then you have the big setback where we have the big tree there, and then we have the retail space, and then you see the site drops down. So the second floor in the front is actually the third floor in the back because the parking goes down 6 feet with the topography. So the height of the building is really 24 feet to the edge of the roof. If you compare that to Vickers, Vickers is what you see, the red contour there. So it's almost like, it's a little over half the height. And it's set further back. So Vickers that close to the street, you see there where the tree is. So where our building starts is where that courtyard that Vickers is. So it's way far back. So it's way, way, way back. And we did this to conform with the scale and made the building blend well with the surroundings. I have some information about density here. Vickers has 71 units in 2 acres. That's 35 units per acre approximately. And 1243 Canton, which is a building further north, which is close to the street and is 3.5 stories. We have even a 4th story there. In half an acre, you have 26 units. So you have, you have 13 units, so you have 26 units per acre. At City Walk, you have 10.2 acres and 31.37 units per acre. Canton Valley, you have, these are all recent developments in Roswell. You have 300 units in 10 acres, 30 units per acre. We have 18 units per acre only. We have 11 units in 0.61 acres. So it's a very low density. It's even less dense than Magnolia Hall that's sitting there since the 60s. That one is 25 units per acre. So the owner went to a great expense to make a building that's going to fit well in the site. And we think it's going to be a great addition. Any questions?
Does council have any questions for the applicant? Thank you. We'll allow you time for a rebuttal. I have a question for staff, please, before I open it up to the public. There are some issues, I know the staff comments related to stormwater. Any approvals we make this evening, staff will still be able to require the necessary stormwater improvements that it looks as though they have not been met to date. Mrs. Bromberg.
They have had their stormwater concept approved, which is all they are required to have at this point, but they will be required to comply fully with the stormwater ordinance at the time of land disturbance permit application. So regardless of what changes may be made to the site plan, they still would be required to make those adjustments and meet the code at the time of permitting.
Thank you, Ms. Bromberg.
And to add to that, that's why one of the conditions that staff puts in about the number of units is not guaranteed in order to meet and comply with all city code requirements.
Thank you, Ms. Stivel. Does council have any additional questions? Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. As community development staff had put together, I remember a density list probably a few years back. I think a few of these examples were not exact, but that's, I don't think that minor detail is really important for the purpose of my point, which is there's definitely some aspects here where I think the applicant did a great job of pushing it further back and trying to make it fit in a little more. At the same time, with the way Canton Street and Crabapple is, it's not a commercial corridor, and I am concerned that it just seems to be packing a lot in there. Granted, there were 2 examples here that on the street, but those were in my opinion, those were inappropriate developments that should not have been approved the way that they were nearby here, and I want to make sure that we're not just continuing to pack more than we should. So I certainly want to discuss how we can make this appropriate, but again, I do have concerns with it as presented.
Additional, yes, Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to go back to the condition about the trees. Who approved these conditions?
The conditions haven't actually been approved just yet. They're recommended.
By who?
Staff and then Planning Commission.
Okay, so Planning Commission, I imagine, took into consideration about not killing the trees, the construction. Your point was like the new construction is going to kill the trees in a few years or a few months. So did Planning Commission have any discussion about this? Did they take into consideration this possibility?
They took into consideration, they looked at that portion, and they also looked at the front tree. So they felt that the front tree would, can be seen more from the street than the trees in the rear. But yes, they listened to all that, and they discussed that at length during their meeting. because they asked staff about our condition, and we discussed why we had put that in there.
And the result of this, they took a vote on that, or?
They took a vote on that, and they removed that condition during their recommendation. So when we went to Planning Commission, staff had 5 conditions, and Planning Commission reduced that to 4.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Additional comments from council? Councilmember Wilsey.
Yeah, another question for Jackie, please. Could you review again the zoning for neighborhood mixed use and then the comprehensive plan future land use for that area, please?
So the neighborhood mixed-use zoning is to provide for neighborhood serving retail and commercial uses at intensities compatible with abutting or adjacent residential development. It's to help limit the extent of the district and to maintain the commercial integrity. Residential uses are limited to upper stories of mixed-use buildings only, and to ensure that uses are truly neighborhood serving. Individual tenant footprints cannot exceed the 15,000 square feet, which this does not. And then NX implements the suburban residential, Holcomb Bridge Road, State Route 140 designations on the future development map of the comprehensive plan. And as indicated in my PowerPoint earlier, you saw that this is located within the suburban residential portion of the comprehensive plan. So it does comply.
So properties on either side would also fall under that same zoning for
They all
future
do.
land use? Okay, all right, thank you.
Additional comments from council? Councilmember Zapata.
Yes, sorry about that. So I see here 2035 comprehensive plan character area, suburban residential. How this fit into suburban residential? And then my second is established neighborhood. Established neighborhood means that there's some homes in the block or in the, can you give us a perspective about how this fit into the 2035 comprehensive plan character area?
Sure. So, hold on a second. So the suburban residential, when you look at the map, actually, could you take it back to our PowerPoint so I can put the map up? Okay. Okay. So this is the suburban residential area, so future land use. When this was done back in 2015, this area was looked at basically because you have a mix of single family, you have a mix of commercial and residential uses in here. So a lot of our city, if you've looked at the entire future development map, is shown up as suburban residential. The corridor and nodes areas outside the historic district will show your commercial portions. So the future development map shows suburban residential. It has the Georgia 400 node. It has the Holcomb Bridge Road node, Parkway Village, and areas like that. So most of the areas that aren't technically either in the district, if they're not on one of the major nodes, they were chosen during that time period by the public when they went through the comprehensive plan to stay as suburban residential. So if you come down to our office, take a look at that map, you'll see that most of it's blue. Now, the established neighborhood section, that came out of the 2035 plan. So in 2030, the 2030 plan that was done in 2010 and 11 had the suburban residential area. In 2015, when the 2035 was done, the public said, we've got a lot of suburban residential, but we want to create a few established neighborhood areas, which are suburban residential, but also possibly have a little bit more. So think of your northwestern portion of the city that has the larger estates. So they looked at that as more of thinking of the established neighborhood area. We also had established neighborhood/retail, which they only put in 2 sections of the city, which is in the northern portion along Crabapple, and then in the southwestern corner along Marietta Highway. So I guess that's the best I can do at the moment to explain how it came about. But suburban residential came about in 2010 with the 2030 comprehensive plan. And most of the city, if you take a look at the map, is shown up as suburban residential. It doesn't matter if it has residential on the property or not. That's what was chosen by the public for the future development map. So if, even though you might have commercial there, or on some of the parcels, as you can see on this map south of this, they are commercial and office uses. And they will remain that way until somebody wants to come through the process and maybe change that. However, the zoning is NX. So somebody can always change that or keep that zoning and use it as office, even though technically under the suburban residential, it might not totally fit, but that's what we have in the on our plan today. Since you brought that up, we are in the process of bidding out for our 2040 comprehensive plan, and we have talked it over, and we've heard from some public about maybe not having so much suburban residential and take a look at really what's out there in the city. So that might change in the next 2 years.
Okay, but currently today,
It's suburban residential.
Okay, so how a condo will fit in a suburban residential?
Yes, so under the code, as I indicated, so the zoning, which you see here on the NX, the zoning is allowed in the suburban residential portion of the comprehensive plan. So based on what I had read here for Councilmember Wilsey's answer related to the comp plan. So in Article 4, it talks about all the different classifications, and this is zoned NX. So NX implements the suburban residential and the Holcomb Bridge Road State Route 140 designations on the future development map of the comp plan. So when the comp plan was adopted and then the UDC followed, they indicated what sections should be a portion of this. So every different zoning implements a different character area or several character areas out of the comprehensive plan. And that's how it was chosen. So until somebody changes that, right now the NX zoning, which is what this is, implements the suburban residential character area.
Okay, so my last question, Mayor, is how a condo will fit on established neighborhoods? Established neighborhood is what is today?
Well, established neighborhoods was put down to get for what was at the time. So we also know that properties change over time. So whether or not an established neighborhood fits in this area or fits under NX, I don't know if I can answer that for you this evening. This is not an established neighborhood area of the comprehensive plan. It's suburban residential. The established neighborhoods was in a different section on the map. So it fits under suburban residential. Whether a condo or not fits, that's staff recommended approval, so we feel that it fits and complies with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Judy.
So here we are again. We have people that fit our zoning, fit the comp plan. They've set it back. They've actually met historic district master plan, even though it's on the outskirts of the historic district master plan. They're providing office, which was not in the plan that came before us last year, 6,000 square feet less than it was last year, 2 stories, walkability for the people that live there, condos, not apartments. And I mean, if you look at, I'm on Google Earth here looking at all the places around there. There are businesses all around there. This also will keep from the corner somebody coming in and buying all the parcels there and putting something very large there on that corner. This, I feel, is a good addition to the neighborhood and actually starts creating that suburban residential where you have actually people living there versus office in our downtown where they can walk and support our businesses. So I think this is a great project. I think the owner has put a lot of thought into it. And again, we set these limits, and that's the reason if we're going to look at the 2040 comp plan and do a diagnostic comprehensive review next year along with UDC, then we look at it then and we say, all right, let's make this what we need to going forward. The code matches this, we're going to match that. But looking at this as it is, I can't turn this down.
Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. I think a number of good points were just made. That being said, there's one important detail that I feel was not addressed, which is the density. I feel density absolutely does matter. I'm also looking at Google Earth and know this area very well as this entire council does. And I think there's really a lot of properties that are potentially ripe for redevelopment. And I think we need to make sure they're going to be redeveloped in an appropriate manner. And this is not a commercial corridor, and I do have concerns, a lot of concerns with this density on a street like Canton Street, right near Crabapple.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Additional comments? Yes, Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. Jackie, can you tell us which percentage will be residential and which percentage will be commercial?
So the percentage point, technically we looked that up. So basically 9% of the total square footage is commercial. So basically about 91% is residential.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Additional questions from council? Seeing no hands up, is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? I would like to ask the applicant to come back and make any final statements, please.
Well, my comment in regards to density, I think we are way less dense than any recent multifamily development in Roswell. And on top of that, because it's a small building, I think make it even more suitable to what you want to see in Roswell. Small buildings, close to the historic district, that fits better with the scale of what's there. Height-wise, I don't think you can ask for more than that. It's just 24 feet. It's way low. It's way less than what's allowed per UDC. So I really don't see how this building could not be really a good fit for this site.
Thank you, gentlemen. Additional questions, comments from council? Do I have a motion?
Thank you, Mayor Henry. I have a motion, and again, it's on the premise that I feel we cannot be giving approvals in a vacuum. Just we have to look at the big picture, the area, and again, this is not a commercial corridor, and I do believe that is a high density for right there, and so what I would like to do is I would like to motion to approve the concurrent variance and a motion to approve the conditional use only with a maximum of 10 units per acre, and each must have the same number of bedrooms as proposed in the plan and the same average square footage within the plan. And then an additional condition, so there'd be the 4 conditions that were presented by Ms. Dybel. I just mentioned a 5th, and then a 6th would be a legal condition requiring that these are condos and that no one or no entity could own multiple, just making sure they would not be turning into apartments. So that's my motion to approve with 6 conditions. Is that clear for staff?
Is that clear for council as well? Councilmember Judy?
So Mayor Henry, before we go on with this motion, is it possible to hear if that's even possible from the applicant? Because if it's not possible from the applicant, then why are we voting on it?
I can certainly open it back up to the applicant.
Having all the units with the same layout would be very hard to achieve because the site is so narrow.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Zapata?
So I heard that would be hard to achieve, but not impossible to achieve, right?
Excuse me, just.
So, I wanted to clarify that, it's difficult but not impossible is different, two different things. So the other one is a question for Councilmember Palermo. So you do want to, see something there new and redevelop, but it's just a matter of, how dense or the density of the property, right? If you can elaborate on that.
Councilmember Palermo.
Sure. So I absolutely do want to support redevelopment here, and I think this is an area that we should expect to see continued interest in redevelopment, and that's why. So I am here supportive of the redevelopment, but wanting to have appropriate redevelopment, which is I feel a lower amount of density for this non-commercial corridor.
Thank you.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Zapata. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is Zapata and Palermo. All those opposed, please raise your hands. And that is Tizer, Wilsey, and Judy. Councilmember Palermo, would you like to make another motion, or should I open it up to the floor?
Please open it up to the floor. Thank you, Mayor Henry.
Is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with staff conditions.
Motion by Councilmember Judy. Yes.
I just have a clarifying question. So are you going to add a legal requirement that these will be condos, or are you going to leave that up to the developer to decide if it's condos or apartments?
No, I stated that it was condos earlier, so I will leave it as condos.
Well, so that's actually.
Excuse me. Okay, so please clarify your motion.
Motion to approve, because I understood earlier it was condos, this condo development of 11 condos with staff conditions.
Okay, so you don't want to place an additional condition on for condos?
If that's necessary, we can do that. Mr. Davison?
Wouldn't hurt.
I will place that on there then.
Thank you. We've got a motion by Councilmember Judy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it's Councilmember Judy, Wilsey, and Tizer. All those opposed, Councilmember Palermo and Zapata. The motion carries. The next item on the agenda, I'm going to call on Councilmember Palermo. Again, it's under Community Development. I would first like to apologize to our guests that have been waiting patiently for this next item. So what I'm going to do, again, is I'm going to, Councilmember Palermo will introduce it, we'll have a conversation, we'll open it up for the public, and then we'll take a vote. So, Councilmember Palermo.
Item number 6, approval to change a street name from Dobbs Drive to Frank Lewis Drive in honor of Dr. Frank Lewis, and approval to update the street naming policy. Ms. Dybel?
Yes, this is a request from a request has been submitted to the city from the Dr. Frank Lewis Legacy Foundation for a street name change request. What they're requesting is to rename Dobbs Drive to Frank Lewis Drive. Here is an aerial view of Dobbs Drive. Just so you all know, we were asked at committee, and Dobbs Drive was named after council member back from the 1970s, and it was approved at a council meeting when he was still on council, to rename it to Dobbs Drive because of his assistance in the Public Works building. Just so you also know, we do have a Dobbs Court. So by changing Dobbs Drive, we would still have a Dobbs Court. And that is the history as to how Dobbs Drive was named. I'm sorry that didn't make it into your packets. So what they have done is, based on our street name policy, they have used number 1 and indicated from a representative of a department. So we brought this to committee so that the committee could bring this forward and put it on a council in order to make the decision whether or not they wanted to change the street name from Dobbs Drive to to Frank Lewis Drive. The doctor part would not be part of it. Staff does recommend approval of that portion. With this request, we have indicated we'd like to update and change the street name policy to remove the portion related to a department and change it to any government elected official, so that if somebody wants to request it in the future, that they would have to speak with a government elected official to bring it forward. One thing you should know, that part of the street name regulations, that the city streets shall not bear the names of living individuals. So that's currently in our street name regulations. So anyone who may request something must be deceased. Do you have any questions for staff? Staff recommends approval of both items.
Does council have any questions? Councilmember Zapata?
Yes, can we add to the packet the piece of information you just read about the history of the name of the street?
Yes.
Can we add it up to the packet for the record?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Additional questions, comments from council? Yes, Councilmember Judy.
I'd just like to say I'm very supportive of this evening. I had the opportunity of knowing Dr. Frank Lewis, his family, his wife here, May's here tonight, and son Aubrey played basketball with him growing up, and know how much he meant to the community as a whole. As a young child, my church, First Baptist Church, used to switch with Zion Baptist and vice versa, and he was a very transformational member of the community. So I am very pleased that we're able to honor him here tonight, and wish we weren't honoring him here tonight and he was here with us, but this is the next best thing, and I'm so excited.
Thank you, Councilmember Judy. I would also like to add that Dr. Frank Lewis was a pivotal character in the history of the city of Roswell. And I would also like to thank his family, because I know you stood behind him and you were supportive, and he couldn't have done it all without you. And thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm going to go ahead and take a vote on this, and then I'm going to open it up to the public, because I think that there are some folks that would like to come forward and speak, but I would like to go ahead and take the vote now. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor Henry, we have a motion. I would like to strongly approve to change the street name from Dobbs Drive to Frank Lewis Drive in honor of Dr. Frank Lewis, and to approve the update to the street naming policy.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Palermo. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously. Now I would like to, first I'd like to invite Mrs. Mamie Lewis to come forward and speak if you would like to.
Mayor Henry and the council members, apologize. Didn't expect to be this emotional tonight. I didn't even prepare anything because I didn't expect to say anything. But the reason I want to say something is because those of you who knew my husband would know that this is not something that he would have done. He would have fought against it with tooth and nail. He would just That's just who he was. But because he gave so much of himself to the city of Roswell, Mrs. Nation referred to him as all of our pastor. He was the kind of man that he was a man of great humility. He was a man of great integrity. Everybody who knew him had a story about their relationship with Frank Lewis. I called him Reb. And I still talk to him today. I got a picture of him. And I said, Reb, do you know what? Let me tell you what. But I want to thank the mayor and the council for your consideration in this matter. Because even though he would not have consented to it at all, I think he is the kind of person that would represent this city well with a street being named for him. And so I thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Well, this is a great occasion, and I would like to ask you all, would you come forward and take a picture with us? Because I think that we really need to document this evening.
All right. We have a couple phones here, so we'll
Give them a second. Thank you all again for being here this evening. The next item on the agenda is the Transportation Department, and I would like to call on Councilmember Judy.
All right, transportation, here we go. Number 7, approval of a resolution to submit a local maintenance and improvement grant LMIG project for the FY 2020 to the Georgia Department of Transportation, and to accept the LMIG funds in the amount of $968,490.29 from GDOT, and approval of Budget Amendment 335-42200-10-15-19 in the amount of $968,490.29. Mohammed?
Thank you, Councilmember Judy. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the first transportation item is the local maintenance and improvement grant application. We receive this grant from Georgia Department of Transportation every year. Roswell's share based on our population and center lane miles, and the total available funding at GDOT for this program is $968,490.29. Here's a list of the roads we are submitting for the grant. And based on our yearly inspection of all roads in the city of Roswell, these are amongst the worst collector roads based on their pavement condition. We have Bowen Road, Jones Road, House Road, Hembry Road, Old Roswell Road. And I also need to make a correction from the committee meeting. At the committee meeting, Councilmember Zapata asked a question about Old Alabama Road connector resurfacing schedule. My answer at the committee was that Old Alabama connector is not on the FY20 list and will appear on a future list when it's turn to get resurfaced. And in fact, Old Alabama connector road was already on the FY19 list. It just wasn't fresh on my mind. That was last year's list. And the good news is that the Old Alabama connector is being resurfaced this week. Roswell is resurfacing the southern half. Northern half of the road is owned by City of Alpharetta, and they did their piece earlier in this year. Coming back to the FY20 LMIG list, we have the same list and a map to go with that. Staff is recommending to approve the resolution to apply for the grant and accept the funds. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does council have any questions for staff? Yes, Councilmember Wilsey?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a question, Mohammed, just to confirm that this resurfacing is in addition to what has already been budgeted for the city, for RDOT this year?
Yes, the local resurfacing list actually was on the consent agenda today, so this is on top of that.
So this is an additional almost
Yes.
$1 million going towards our road. So, okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the work.
Additional questions from council? Seeing no hands up, is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one come forward, do I have a motion?
Yes, motion to approve item number 7.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy, second by Councilmember Zapata. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously.
All right, number 8, approval of an amendment to Article 21.2.25, small cell technology, in Chapter 21 of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances. This is the first reading. Mr. Del Ross.
Thank you, Councilmember Judy. Good
Excuse
evening.
me, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 21, Telecommunications and Cable Services, Article 21.2, Standards for Wireless Communication Facilities, adding Section 21.2.25, Small Cell Technology, to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Georgia, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this is the first reading.
Thank you. As Mr. Davidson just said, this updates Section 21.2.25 from the approved city policy passed in October 2016. The short explanation for this is this brings our city code into compliance with the state legislation that was passed earlier this year by our state legislatures. It actually went into effect last week, October 1. There are not many significant changes. We were aligned pretty closely with the state legislature. It does redefine some of the categories that we charge fees for permits. It defines 3 classes of permits. Either a utility company attaches to an existing pole, they either replace an existing pole with an upgraded pole, or they are applying for a new pole outright. There are 3 fees associated with that you will see on this slide. These are the maximum allowable fees provided to us, the ability for us to assess by state law. The other tidbit, a change from the old 2016 code to the current code, the state law increases the height at which a pole would fall under the state small cell ordinance and whether it would trigger the city's own cell tower ordinance, and that height is 50 feet. Here for any questions you may have.
Does council have any questions? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one approach, do we have a motion?
Yes, motion to approve number 8, first reading.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Do I have a second? Councilmember Palermo.
And so, something I'm curious about as I was trying to really read through all this. So, what's the date of these? If the first reading passes tonight, what's the date of the second reading?
October 28th.
October 28th. Okay, because I will be voting in support tonight, but I am going to want to make sure to get some detailed questions prior to that second reading. But I don't want to hold it up given the all the details here.
Do I have a second? The motion dies for lack of second. Is there, Mr. Davidson?
We are required to adopt this now if you want to have any protections in our right-of-way at all. So I would highly recommend that you move it forward, whether you like it or not. The FCC and the state have basically trumped what we have in place right now. If you don't follow the state's lead on this, we will be seeing an abundance of things with no control and no money for them going in our right-of-way.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. Mr. Davidson actually just addressed some of my questions that I wanted to actually discuss. I guess what I want to understand more is I want to ensure that we have as much local control as possible, realizing that with the state and with the FCC, that is limited, but I do want to make sure we're maximizing that. So I just wanted to actually better understand what are the opportunities that we have to potentially add some additional protections in here compared to understanding as well the consequence of not passing this, which you just started to describe. So that's just basically what I wanted to understand a little more.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. As you know, we were one of the leaders in adopting an ordinance on small cells. With that, we were also kind of a catalyst for legislation. This legislation has been, as you know, previous year they brought in legislation that was basically just going to say they can go anywhere they want to go and you don't get anything out of it, you'll be happy with it, which the state has the authority to do because we are a creature of the state. Through negotiations, with GMA and other cities, they worked a compromise deal in the legislature with the small cell companies. Our ordinance is as tight to the state law as you can get while providing the maximum benefit to the city. It's set to rise every chance that it's given a chance to rise as provided by state law. It won't require further council action. It will do it automatically when it rises by state law, the prices and fees. My recommendation is that you do pass this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Councilmember Judy.
So, as Mr. Davidson said, this, as we talked about, in committee brings us into line with the state, doesn't take away any of our ability to be a local entity because the state regulates that anyway. And so I highly recommend, I will do a motion and hope somebody seconds it.
Councilmember Wilsey.
I will second and hope that in the next 2 weeks before the October 28th, that everyone can have their questions answered and we can tighten it up in any way that needs to be done before then.
Got a motion by Councilmember Judy, a second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Councilmember
All right.
Judy.
On to number 9, approval of an update to the policy and procedures of the City of Roswell Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program. Mr. Bruner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The next 2 items are related to our 2 traffic calming policies. Is actually an update to them. They haven't been updated in several years. So the first one, and just for the benefit of the audience, we have 2 policies. One is called the Residential Traffic Control Enhancement Policy, which is for speeds or other issues more than 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, relatively mild issues. And the second one is for more serious issues such as 10 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. So the second one is the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Policy and Procedure, and that involves more comprehensive constructible improvements, whereas the first one, the enhancement policy, really is more passive devices that enhance regular standardized traffic control devices. So I'm going to speak about the updates to the traffic calming policy first. One of the key elements of the past traffic calming policy has been vertical deflection devices, which are speed humps, speed tables, speed cushions. And our recommendation for this update is to eliminate those vertical deflection devices as potential measures under our traffic calming policy. And the reason for this is that there are many adverse characteristics of speed humps and speed cushions, and there's probably 25 I could list, but the top 6 are really up here. And the top 3 are highlighted. First of all and foremost, they interfere with emergency response, not just response time, but they affect the way we can safely treat patients in transport. And the second one, which is also very serious, speed hump is probably 20 to 30 times more dangerous to a motorcyclist than to a vehicle car, and there's definitely been documented fatalities attributable to speed humps. And thirdly, they can also cause damage to vehicles. If you've ever seen any type of speed hump, it's usually scraped up and has signs of wear and tear for vehicles. But strangely, probably most pertinent to this area is actually number 6, and which is that their presence tends to reduce property values or create a perception of reduced property values. And that is one of the reasons most cited for petitions for speed humps to actually fail in our neighborhoods. So just some background. Right now, under the city's code of ordinances, we have adopted the International Fire Code. It's a slightly amended version of it, but basically it is the International Fire Code. And under that code, which is adopted by this board, the fire code official, which in our case is our fire marshal, Chief Charlie Vaca, he has full authority on traffic calming devices. And under the code, all such devices are initially prohibited unless they're approved by him. So we've had some discussions in the last several months where speed humps have come up, and basically the fire marshal no longer wants to allow those to be in the right of way. And we actually concur with that for that reason and for the reasons that we cited previously. So we did amend, or actually we amended Section 6 of the traffic calming policy to specifically outline the reason why we are eliminating vertical deflection devices. And we also specifically outlined which ones would be prohibited. So the prohibited devices are speed humps, speed cushions, speed tables, raised intersections, and raised crosswalks. However, in the last three, you'll see there's a caveat that says that they're prohibited if the approaches consist of a speed hump type deflection. And we recognize and we actually support that in some cases, for various reasons, we may want to raise an intersection or raise a segment of roadway or raise a trail crossing or a bike lane. But if we do so, we don't want to prohibit that, but we want to do it so that the slopes going up to it are gradual enough to not affect our emergency responders. So you can design those type of treatments, but they would have to go through approval with the fire marshal's office and our office as well. The update also more clearly identifies some of the things that we would approve and do encourage in lieu of the speed humps, and they include horizontal deflection treatments or chicanes, which are kind of curvature to the roadway that create kind of a slalom effect to slow down vehicles, narrowing of the roadway or neck downs, separators or channelization, on-street parking with bulb outs for pedestrian crosswalks, textured and colored pavements and hardscapes, street art, landscaping, street furniture, things that attract people and just create friction that tends to slow vehicles down. And any of the devices listed in the residential traffic control enhancement program and any combinations thereof. So that's a summary of really the key amendments to the document. In terms of financial impact, the policy for that still has not changed. The 65% approval is needed for the affected residents, and any treatment is a 50-50 partnership between the city and the neighborhood residents. So any program, 50% would have to be paid by the local residents and 50% by the city. Currently, we don't have a budget item in this year's budget for it, but we do have a little bit of rollover money from previous years. Are there any questions?
Does council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Judy.
So I've had some questions from some citizens about existing speed calming devices in their neighborhoods. And it was my understanding from committee, we would not be removing those right now. This is just speed calming devices going forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We clarified that with the fire marshal as well, and we have no intent to remove any of the existing devices.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Question about the 50-50 split. How is that determined for a project by application and approval by transportation or by council based on funding? I mean, it sounds like a good opportunity for neighborhoods to take advantage of. I'm just curious as to what the process is.
Was the 50-50 determined, or what's the?
How would a neighborhood take advantage of that for a project like this?
Well,
for traffic project?
Well, first of all, we would actually, on the city side, we would need more funding, but we go through a process by which, we start off and look at the problem. We actually work with law enforcement, and then we develop some concepts, and then the petition, we take the concept to the committee with some cost estimates, and then from there we would proceed with actual formal petition that demonstrates that 65% of the affected residents support that, and the applicant or the homeowners group or neighborhoods group, whoever is the applicant, would be responsible for gathering the 50% of the funds, and the city would be responsible for finding the other 50%. So it's a process. It's a partnering process, and of course you want to find the most cost-effective things so that you reduce costs.
Okay, thank you. But that funding depends on, the funds being available to transportation or the project being approved through council. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, great. That's just what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for your work on this. I would just want to encourage residents and HOAs to take a look at the suggested methods of traffic control, and then in the next one, some of those suggested methods. There's some really creative items in there. We always want to pull out, a speed hump will solve the problem. And I'm not sure statistics would show that they really do, but some of these other items are very creative. I noticed one that you guys have put in just the other day on Magnolia, just before it turns into Pine Grove. And I was trying to figure out what in the heck these horizontal lines that continued to get shorter and or longer and closer together were. And while I was doing that, I was slowing down. Okay? And I've watched it now for the last couple of weeks, and people have this quizzical look in their eye as they approach them, and it just happens to sort of end right about where the new Chinese style street food restaurant is, and that's an area that's always had, since it's downhill, quite a bit of speeding. So thank you for doing that, but it's really interesting the psychological effect it kind of has on you when you're driving.
That was actually one of Scott's idea.
So there's a lot of things in these policies. So, as people look at them, see if some of those creative ideas might work in your area.
Well, thank you.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So I certainly do appreciate you bringing this to us. I think it's an important discussion, and we really do have to focus on the safety. And at the same time, as I look at this, I think there's a lot of residents that certainly feel traffic is our number one issue, and there's a lot of residents in neighborhoods that have issues with cut-through traffic and just speeding in general. So I guess I have concern when we're eliminating a solution, and I'm wondering if, I just want to propose and have a discussion and hear your thoughts of looking at it a little differently, which perhaps gets us to the same place, which is, first off, based on what I'm hearing, I think it absolutely makes sense that the city no longer offer matching funds for these vertical traffic calming devices. So I think that makes sense. And also, I think absolutely, I fully support that we should be prioritizing with all the other solutions. At the same time, I'm wondering if there's potentially some vertical solutions that on a certain type of street or in certain type situations should be a possible measure, because as discussed earlier, we have a lot of neighborhoods that have these, and it sounds like they definitely want to be grandfathered in. So it shows certainly they saw some improvement by having them. So I guess that's my hesitation, which gives me the concern to completely take it off the table. So those are kind of my thoughts I'd like to discuss both with transportation as well as council.
Okay. Would you like me to respond to that at all?
Yes, sir.
I mean, one of the reasons that we were getting rid of proposing to get rid of the deflection was really for emergency response. Mm-hmm. And so that actually, in fact, the fire marshal has a higher authority on that than us. However, we did kind of add that section that says, if properly designed, you can elevate the roadway, create slopes, and you can actually combine that with other design options. So I kind of hear you. I just want to say that the traditional speed hump does have some pretty serious issues, and I actually accidentally did a study of two parallel roads. One had speed humps and one didn't. And the speeds in between the speed humps on the road with them were higher than the highest speeds without them. So and there's also the acceleration and braking aspects of it. So I think we hear you. Maybe we can work on that. What are some of the alternate options to the traditional speed hump? And bring that back or a future date, or it's still kind of in the draft now anyway.
So I want to add to that a little. Actually, that's a great idea, and we kind of already do that. So most recently, if you can picture Maple Street in your mind, that comes off of Highway 9 as a one-way street. And at the far end of it, it turns where there is a new development, the 3 homes being built. And at the turn, that's where the Oxbow Trail crosses. And at that point, we are actually going to raise the trail there, so it would kind of act as a speed bump. And we worked that out with the fire marshal. And since that is on such a sharp turn anyway, where an emergency vehicle would have to slow down anyway, so it doesn't really matter in that case. So at that point, at that turn, fire marshal was okay in us asking the developer to install that. So whenever it gets built, it will be a raised trail crossing, basically, so the vehicles would have to slow down.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Councilmember Wilson?
And just a comment, there were some alternative suggestions that I saw that I would love to see some neighborhoods experiment and take advantage of with the traffic separators and bulb outs on street parking and art and things like that, that I think are a great alternative and very creative that I like to see.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it seems to me that, in certain well-established neighborhoods, under certain conditions, might make sense. I was very impressed by the motorcycle there. I don't know the speed of the motorcycle going over and what was the speed limit of the street where was this installed. And I'm sure that, if you see some kids playing around, slowing down, it's not a bad thing. So I don't see the needs, because I'm sure in some established neighborhood, under some circumstance, under certain parameters of speed, location, cut-through traffic, certain parameters make sense. So taking the vertical deflection devices out of the traffic calming toolbox, I don't think that makes sense. Having many options is what makes sense. And then, between transportation and the neighborhood, decide what is the best solution for each individual case. So I think that getting this out of the traffic calming toolbox doesn't make much more sense. So when you have also many other options to offer, so why not to keep this one as another possible option?
So I think a couple of things, like Scott mentioned earlier, that we may still allow the vertical deflection with a much longer ramp to kind of get on, so the vertical deflection is not as abrupt, so it wouldn't cause any damage to the vehicle. So we could still do that with a much longer ramp on both sides. So like you said, if it fits in a certain area, we are still open to that. And I just explained one example on Maple Street where we are actually doing that already. And beyond that, it's really based on the emergency response time and the restriction we kind of got from the International Fire Code, as explained by the fire marshal, is kind of dictating the change.
Okay. So not letting the neighborhood choose from the toolbox, then it's going to be hard for me to support the total elimination of the vertical deflection devices.
Like I said, it's not total elimination.
Right.
There's still 2 options. If, like Maple Street, if they're in a very sharp turn where any vehicle, including the emergency vehicles, would have to slow down anyway, we would still look at the vertical deflection. And the other option that was mentioned, if there's enough room to do longer ramps, so the vertical deflection is not as abrupt, we would still consider that.
Great, thank you.
Additional questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do we have a motion?
Yes, so based upon what you said, this is very gray. It gives you the opportunity to do it where it makes sense. This is safety first, the livelihood of the citizens that live or are visiting those homes, and based upon the International Fire Code and our fire chiefs and police chiefs, I will motion for approval of this update to the policy.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that would be Tizer, Wilsey, and Judy. All those opposed, please raise your hands. And that would be Councilmember Palermo and Zapata. The motion passes.
Thank you. This one's a little easier, maybe. So this is the the residential traffic control enhancement policy. And this one pretty much stays the same. We actually just cleaned it up a little bit. The existing policy includes, as I mentioned earlier, just more passive modifications. These are usually traffic control devices that are just, we may not normally use them, but in these cases, they're there to enhance regulation or to try to reduce speeds or create motorist awareness. So some of the things we do, in-street pedestrian warning assemblies, electronic speed feedback, radar signs, which are actually among probably one of our most popular program. We get asked probably every 2 days to install one. Rectangular rapid flashing beacons, also really popular. Flashing sign assemblies. In the old code, which we are going to be removing, is the Keep Kids Alive, Drive 25 signs. We're not removing it necessarily because there's bad intent. We're removing it because it's not an officially recognized sign under the regulations that we follow. It's a sign promulgated by National Safety Organization, and which would have to go outside the right-of-way. We don't have jurisdiction outside the right-of-way, so there's really no reason for it to be in the program. Flexible post delineators and raised pavement markings, and speed reduction markings like on Magnolia. So the only real changes are these shown here. We just really cleaned up the language. We replaced the Keep Kids Alive, Drive 25 signs with the standardized playground sign, which is the children on a seesaw. It's a official sign that demarcates where children may be congregating or playing, or if there's a playground. And you know, we actually showed more examples of these type of devices in the update, and we actually have a in-city example of the speed reduction pavement markings. So here are just some examples of them. The flexible post delineators. You can actually, create some, different effects with colored pavement and texture pavement as well. This was actually a mock-up of one of the subdivisions that we were trying to do the speed reduction markings. We didn't go forward with that. There wasn't enough interest in it, but that's more or less what we did on Magnolia. And the financial impact on this does not require the extensive process that the traffic calming process does. It does not require 65% consensus. It just really needs a sponsor, funding from the neighborhood organization. And we would, depending on what type of device or treatment, we would seek written approval if it's in somebody's yard or right in front of their property or that type of thing. But other than that, you don't need a widespread 65% consensus.
Thank you, Mr. Brunner. Does council have any questions? Seeing no hands up, is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Yes, motion to approve item number 10.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is under the City Attorney's Report. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. The only item I have is a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
Do I have a motion for closure?
Motion to go to closure.
Motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. It passes unanimously, and we are adjourned.
I'd like to